here we go with preparations afoot for a walk round Gayton. We've got the Ordnance Map 207, the book Glimpses of Gayton, got various information from the internet, and here we are. I've done a little map so that you can follow my walk round the village. Very interesting to trace the history right through from Saxon, Norman days, through medieval, right up to Victorian days, and when the railway came through the village. See you later. So here's the little map I've done to help you navigate the path through the village. If you start at number 1, the church, and then you'll see it's a circular route. We don't take in the old railway line on this trip, but we will do at some stage in the future. Okay, so here we are in Gayton. It's raining, but never mind. We're at number 1, which is here, the church. We're going to go along here, past the Manor House, and then right through High Street and back along here, probably a little excursion up Harris Lane and back to the car. So it's a good circular route. And here we go. Gayton Church. 13th, 14th century. It's St Mary the Virgin. Apparently some really interesting medieval carvings inside. Haven't been able to go in yet, but we'll do one day. Here is a Saxon doorway. Most of the church is Norman. Some very interesting graves in here. And apparently the oldest grave in the church is that, tomb, is that of Philip de Gayton, who died in 1316. So we'll just go round here. There's the Manor House across the road. We'll come back to that later. And there's an interesting little doorway here. Again, I think this is Saxon origin. Look at that. It's obviously blocked up now, but very old. Look at these old gravestones. It's nice how they let them get overgrown with ivy and other bits of flora, rather than it all being neat and tidy and everything in a uniform order. But these here have got maybe a little bit too overgrown, because you can't even see that there's tombs underneath them. This one here says the 6th Baron Vaux of Harrowden, which apparently, now that I've looked it up, he was called George Charles Mostyn. It was a title created in 1523 by Henry VIII, and the Vaux family were related to Catherine Parr, one of Henry VIII's wives. Interestingly, the title was able to be passed down to the male or female side of the family, which was most unusual in those days. You may have heard of Port Merion, the village in North Wales. That's quite famous. The Prisoner, the 1960s television programme, was filmed there. Well, the guy that designed it, and it was actually, the whole thing was his invention, was called Clough Williams Ellis, Sir Clough Williams Ellis, and he was born in this little village. His father was the vicar of this church. He lived here until he was 4. Then directly across the road from the church is the Manor House. It's 16th century, built in the shape of a cross apparently, and it was built by Sir Francis Tanfield. There's said to be an underground tunnel from there to the church, which is associated with in the Reformation, when Roman Catholics had to escape from the authorities, and apparently they used the tunnel. Not sure whether there's any truth in that, but that's as the story goes. The Hawley family owned it for many, many years, until fairly recently into the 21st century. Another view of the church, and across the road there, the Manor House, and we're going down that road there into the village, and on the left you can see the perimeter wall of what used to be Gayton House. And there we are, another view of the manor. Isn't it a wonderful building? To think that people have lived there for hundreds of years. How different life must have been for them. Well, there was no green wheelie bins in those days either. As we walk into the village, there's fantastic views of the Northamptonshire countryside. The canal's just down there over that ridge. Another nice walk. We'll do that another day. So this is the lodge house to Gayton House. Look at these wonderful lamp holders at the gate. Allegedly designed by Clough Williams Ellis. Or is it Ellis Williams? Ellis Williams. Again, the Port Merion guy. Now up here used to be the house that was first mentioned in the 1600s, but sadly demolished in the 1970s to make way for an estate. It was owned by the Eakin family, who own most of the land around here, the farms, the pubs, the Eakin Arms, and they used to employ a lot of the girls from the village here in Victorian days. They had big parties, and especially at Christmas they were renowned for having all the local villagers invited in, and Lady Eakin did the waiting on. So we're turning right just opposite the gatehouse down Dean's Row, because this building at the end used to be called the Deanery, and then it moved. It changed its name to the Dower House. And this is the old schoolhouse, which was opened in Victorian days, 1845, and then in 1994 it became too small, so a new school was built, and now it's a residence. This building here, now called Beach House, used to be the post office. This little area was called Post Office Row. We're going up here now. On the left you can see this Dower House. It's a very old building. Mrs. Eakin Senior, the Dowager, lived here in the early 1900s. It has a cross there and a religious text and some old oriel windows. And then when we get round the other side you can see a steeple, so it's obviously got an ecclesiastical connection. Now here's the Dower House again, and if we look closely around there you can see the steeple at the top with the weather vane. So must be some sort of chapel in there. And then along here, there's a very interesting house at the end here. So this house here is really interesting. Look how old those garage doors are. Look at the doorposts, the windows, the wall. Everything about it tells you that it's medieval, that it's been here for hundreds of years. But in fact, it was built in 1973, according to one of the neighbours. The guy that owns it is a master builder and obtained reclaimed building materials from all over Europe and this country and built himself that house. The Gayton Arms, the only pub now left in the village. That name again, Gayton family. And next door is this really old house, Evergreen Farm. And they have stables and coaching for the travellers that came to the pub. Very old house, very old windows, and on the opposite side of the road are evergreen stables, which look to be in original condition. Just a bit farther up from the Gayton Arms, this pub used to be called the Queen Victoria. It was a pub, a bakehouse, a chapel, a shop, now obviously private. Oh, this is the back of a house at the top of the high street called the Weir, one of the oldest houses in the village. It used to be a farm and there was a pond at the front of it, so it's very prone to flooding apparently. It looks very old. Let's have a look at it from the front. More farmhouses. Well, they were originally 5 ways and out back. They're at the top of Back Lane. Down there is the road to Bugbrook. Down there's the village hall and the school. And we're going back down here, which is called Baker's Lane. Another farm building in the village. This is Home Farm, apparently famous for breeding sheep and horses. And the Northampton stagecoach was actually stored there. And we're just walking, you can see in the distance on the right the Gayton Hall Gatehouse, and then up here we have Harris Lane. Apparently he was just a local that rented some land and buildings and had a farm.